Many years ago, a young man left his farm and his land to go and serve in his country's war. His wife, Yunuk, stayed behind and took good care of the farm while he was gone, but every night she wondered and she wept as whether he would ever come home again. Several years later, she saw walking down the path a familiar figure, and as he got closer, she could see that his face was still handsome and his body still strong. But when he got closer, she could see that his spirit was broken. She took him in and she prepared for him a meal made of lavish foods. "Look," she said, "how heavy the chickens, how plump they have gotten since you have been gone. Look at all the crocks of kimchi that I have prepared. Look at the bags of rice that I have threshed all by myself, and look how heavy the fruit hangs on the tree." But he just pushed his food away. When she handed him a hoe, he would not take it to do some gardening that he used to love. When she called him from the fields, he would not come. And although he walked in the fields, in the orchard where the fruit hung so heavy, it was as if with unseeing eyes. And Yunuk found herself doing things that no woman should have to do. She sold her jewelry just to buy him cakes made of persimmon and sesame. She brought out her wedding dress made of the finest silk as a reminder of their love together. But often he would not even look at her, and if he spoke to her, it was with critical words. And all Yunuk could think was that he no longer loved her. Now in those days there lived in the mountain an old woman, a shaman. And what Yunuk had heard of her, she was to be revered and feared. And Yunuk thought that maybe this old woman could heal her husband. So on the morning that Yunuk left, she said to her husband, "I am going away for several days." He did not look up. She said, "I have made you fish and squash and rice that will last you while I am gone." He said nothing. She said, "I will miss you." He was looking past her and out the window with those unseeing eyes. So Yunuk shouldered her satchel and she began to make her way up the mountain. It was a treacherous journey. Rocks were strewn along the path. And she had to cower in the darkness as a storm blew in, and she was afraid of wolves and bears coming out to get her. But in the morning, she arrived in front of the old woman's cave, and there the old woman was laying out in front, sunning herself. "Oh, most revered and honored grandmother, I come to you with a heavy heart. For my husband is in need of healing, and he is like a stranger in my arms." The old woman listened to Yunuk talk about all the things she had done to try to please her husband. And as she did, she thought, yes, she could help Yunuk, but it would take willing hands and an eager heart. When Yunuk was finished, the old woman said, "I can help you, my child. And this is what you must do. In the hills behind your house, there lives a tiger. I would like you to bring me its whisker." Yunuk was surprised. She thought the old woman would teach her a chant that she could sing to her husband while he slept. Or perhaps the old woman would have given her a paste to put in her husband's food, all which would heal his heart. But the whisker of a tiger? Truly, this was dangerous. But Yunuk knew she must do as the old woman had asked. Now, as Yunuk made her way back home down the mountain, she began to give thought to how she would capture a tiger. "I know," she said. "I will hire a hunter, and he will kill the tiger, and then I will have his whisker." But she knew that wasn't right. Then she thought, I know, I will set a lair for the tiger. And when he is done struggling, he will be more than happy to give me his whisker. No, she thought. She even thought, who has held the whisker of a tiger anyway? The old woman? Surely not. Maybe she could use a whisker of a more amiable animal. But Eunuch knew in her heart that she was going to have to bring the whisker of a tiger. So that night, after her husband went to bed, Eunuch prepared a simple broth, and she made her way up into the hills. And in the distance she heard, and Eunuch dropped her bowl right there. And she ran all the way home. The next day she came back, and she had another bowl of broth, and again she heard, and again she dropped her bowl. I can tell you, during this period of several weeks, she dropped many bowls. And so she decided to go and see a hunter, and she asked him to show her where the den of the tiger was. And he pointed out a path that led to the tiger's den. So Eunuch went back home, and after her husband had gone to sleep, she prepared some savory meat, and she went down this path. And then she heard, and again she dropped her bowl. She came back the next night and the next night, and every night she heard the tiger growl, but every time she got a little closer to his den, close enough that sometimes she could see if he was even there, and sometimes she could hear a gentle snoring. And then one night, when there was a full moon, Eunuch was walking down this path, and there, right in front of her, was the tiger. He had a carcass hanging from his mouth that was dripping with blood to the ground. His tail switched back and forth as he glared at Eunuch. Oh, most honored grandfather. And then Eunuch took some fish from her pocket and placed it on the ground. I come to you in peace. It is I who have been bringing you the food. And now I leave you in peace. I will return tomorrow. And Eunuch backed away, keeping her eye on the tiger. And when he was out of sight, she ran off all the way home. It took a lot of courage for her to come back the next night, but she did. And this time she got as far as his den, and she could hear him inside. Eunuch put some food in front of his den, and she went and she hid in the darkness. After several hours, the tiger came out. Oh, he saw Eunuch, but he also saw his food, and he began to eat. And when he was finished, he returned inside the den, and Eunuch waited until she heard, and she ran home. She came back the next night and the next for several weeks, every night bringing him some food, and every night watching as he ate, waiting for him to return to his den. And every time she got a little closer. And then one night, after he was finished, he just rolled over on his side and began to purr. Eunuch was giggling to herself. She could not believe that she was in front of a tiger who was purring. She waited till he fell asleep and came back the next night. Now this took several months. And the next night, and the next night, every time, getting a little closer. And then one night, she reached out and touched his tawny head and began to pet him. And he pressed his head into her hand, enjoying her gentle stroke. And Eunuch waited till he fell asleep, and she went home. But she came back night and night again, every night, waiting till he purred and petting him, sometimes talking to him in a gentle voice. And then one night she said, "Oh, great tiger, this is the night I have been telling you about. This is the night I take your whisker. Oh, it will hurt, and for that I am sorry. And I thank you for your sacrifice, but it is as I have been telling you. My husband is in need of great healing." And then she reached out and she took the whisker. Eunuch waited till the tiger fell asleep, and then she ran all the way home, holding that tiger's whisker high in the air. The next morning, she ran up the mountain, the dirt just churning underneath their feet, and she got to the old woman's cave before noon. "Oh, most honored and revered grandmother, I have done as you have said. I have brought you the whisker of a tiger. Now will you heal my husband?" The old woman looked at her. "Tell me, did I ever say that I would heal your husband?" Eunuch was surprised. Did she hear the old woman wrong? Was the old woman a liar? "Now, my child, you must tell me, how did a small, helpless woman like you get the whisker of a tiger?" Eunuch said it took her many months, and she eventually got closer and closer and was feeding the tiger and eventually petting him, and then taking his whisker was easy. "So you mean to tell me that you took the whisker of a live, flesh-eating tiger, yet you say you do not know how to heal your husband? If it is magic you are looking for, I think you already have it." Eunuch smiled, and she bowed before the old woman, and the old woman reached out and touched her head as if a blessing. And Eunuch turned and she ran all the way home, holding that tiger's whisker close to her breast, now knowing its great secret.